Shalom Mashpaka. Shalom. Shalom to the whole Ba'if of Yasha'al. Shalom to the elder Ak, Yahudah. Shalom to the younger Ak, Ephraim. Shalom to the stranger who has come out of the nations, who have thrown down their idols, and whereby being engrafted into the Ba'if of Yasha'al through Hanasah, through the branch, through Yahusha, HaMashiach, whereby becoming adopted sons and now becoming fellow partakers of the very same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone. Shalom, shalom to you, Mishpaka. Wherever your feet touch the soil, on this La'ila, or on this Arab, on this evening, wherever your feet touch the soil, on this Arab, on this evening, I bid you shalom. I bid you shalom. I am Dawood Ban Yahuwah, and this is Yahuwah's Remnant Channel. This is Yahuwah's Remnant Channel. Shalom, Mashpaka. Shalom. It's been a while. You've seen the title of this video by now. Yahuwah gave me a series on this subject, the covenant of creation and the people of Yahuwah. And if you're watching this video and you have not watched the first three videos, the covenant of creation and the people of Yahuwah, part one, who is the Yaqid, and the covenant of creation and the people of Yahuwah, continued, who is the Yaqid, and the covenant of creation and the people of Yahuwah, part two, Asau despised his birthright. What about you? Asau despised his birthright. What about you? I intended to finish this series before now, but Yahuwah took me in a different direction. But Barak Yahuwah, he has now allowed me to come back now and finish this. And so if you have not watched, again, it's been a while. It's been maybe 2 or 3 months now, maybe longer, since the other videos were made. But if you have not watched them, then don't begin here. Go back and watch them. If you've already watched them, Barak Yahuwah, we're now on part 3 of this teaching. We're now on part 3. And again, part 3 of this teaching is once more the covenant of creation and the people of Yahuwah. Part 3, Asau, or Esau, despised his birthright. What about you? What about you? So we left off in the previous video reading Jubilees, the 19th chapter. And what we were doing is we were establishing, Abba was establishing the characteristics, the difference between the characteristics in Esau and Jacob. He was establishing there the differences between the characteristics in Esau and Jacob. And we're going to, or Yaqub, and now we're going to continue that line. We're going to continue that in establishing the different characteristic traits between Asau and Yaqub in unraveling this teaching with respect to the covenant of creation, how they play, what part they play in the covenant of creation. The covenant of creation and the people of Yahuwah, part 3, Esau, Asau despised his birthright. What about you? What about you? So in the last video, I'm just going to reiterate this one part and understanding that Adam, our father Adam, he is the firstborn of all creation. He was the firstborn of all creation. And the HaMashiach, who is the second Adam, this is why in Paul's letters to the Corinth, Paul's letter to the Corinth, he addresses the Mashiach as the firstborn of all creation, because he came as the second Adam. He came as the second Adam. And so just as the first Adam was the firstborn of all creation, so was the Hamashiach. But where the Hamashiach takes it a step further, Adam was the firstborn of mankind. Adam was the firstborn of mankind. The second Adam was not only a representation of the firstborn of mankind, but he was the first. He was a representation and is a representation of the whole of creation, of the whole of creation. And it has to be that way in order for the whole of creation to be reconciled back to Yahuwah through his sacrifice, through his offering. And so he represented the whole of creation, the whole of creation. He even represented the earth and the Shamayim. Thus he came from the Shamayim and he came to the earth. He represented both the earth and the Shamayim. And so everything, both the Shamayim and the Arats, are being reconciled back to Yahuwah through this one offering, through this one sacrifice. We understand in the Torah that it is written, our ancestors are commanded to separate all of the firstborn to Yahuwah, both of man and beast. He makes the declaration that both the firstborn of man and beast are his. But that the firstborn of man, they were to redeem. They were to redeem with what? With the blood of a firstborn of a beast from the flock or the herd, so that the firstborn blood of the flock or the herd was counted as their blood, so that they would not have to suffer and die. Indeed, they were a foreshadowing of the Hamashiach. And so if both firstborn are his, indeed they are, because he made everything, this is why Yahusha came as the firstborn of all creation and start in order to reconcile all of creation back to Yahuwah. All of his creation is precious to him. All of it is precious to him. This should cause some to take note that mistreat animals. They're not going to be held guiltless. They're not going to be held guiltless. If the Hamashiach came as the firstborn of all creation, if even the animals meant enough to Yahuwah in order for him to die for animals, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He came as the firstborn of all creation in order to reconcile all of creation back to himself. And so if animals are important enough for him, in order for him to shed his blood, not primarily, but nevertheless he did, how much more is he going to punish those who mistreat his animals? All of his creation is precious to him. Nevertheless, so Adam, the firstborn, was the beginning of his father's strength. We talked about this in the previous video. Adam was the beginning of his father's strength. Who was his father? Yahuwah. He was the beginning of his father's strength. This is why the firstborn gets the inheritance of the father. He is more like the father than any of the subsequent sons and daughters. The firstborn is the beginning of his father's strength. He looks more like his father. And he has more of the characteristics of his father than anyone else. And this was the case with Adam. He looked more like his father, he looked more like Yahuwah, and had more of his characteristics than any of his subsequent sons. This is why he's the firstborn. This is why he gets the inheritance. And you see that inheritance was passed down from Adam down through the generations to his firstborn sons. Whoever had his characteristics, the beginning of his strength, and that would have been Shaph. It was originally Habal. It passed from Cain because he had a wicked heart, just like it passed from Asau to Yaqub. It passed from Asau because he had a wicked heart, and it passed to Yaqub because Yaqub was more like Ishkak than Asau. He had more of the characteristics of Ishkak than Asau had. Same case with Habal. Habal had more of the characteristics of Adam. He looked more like him and acted more like him than Cain. Then it passed when Habal was murdered by Cain. It passed to Shaph, or Seth, who the text declares that when Habal was killed, that Yahuwah gave Adam another son like him. Another son like him. And so Shaph, or Seth, was like him. He carried his characteristics. He had his characteristics. And those characteristics then were passed down to Shop's firstborn son, Anush, or it may have been Canaan. I don't have the order in front of me. Nevertheless, those characteristics were passed down throughout the generations to firstborn sons, until it reached Kanuk, commonly called Enoch, and Methuselah, and Nuach, and Sham or Shem, and then down to Eber or Aber, and then down to Abraham, and to Ishkak, and to Yakub, and from Yakub to Yahusuf or Joseph, and from Joseph or Yahusuf to Ephraim, and from Ephraim down to the Hamashiach, who came as the firstborn of all creation. You see, Yasha'al is a representation of mankind. Yasha'al is a representation of his firstborn son, Adam. Indeed, we are a part of his lineage. And so in order, let me clear that up just a little bit. Yasha'al is a representation of the second Adam, And thus, in order for mankind to be delivered, they must be what? Be reborn from the loins of the second Adam. In other words, they must be born from above, whereby receiving the engrafting, being engrafted into Yasha'al as an adopted son. And now as an adopted son, you carry the same rights as the firstborn. And so now you have equal rights to the inheritance that was only given to the firstborn son, passed down from the father. You have equal right to this inheritance that was given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone, who is a representation of Adam, of mankind. And so in order to be firstborn, again, you are the beginning of your father's strength. You have more of his characteristics. You have more of his nature. You look more like him than any of his other sons. And so he then passes everything he owns down to you, to the elder son, And so Adam, being the elder son, gets the inheritance of his father. What's the inheritance? The Eretz, the earth. And so that inheritance was passed from Adam down through the generations, through firstborn sons, through Nuach, through Shem, through Eber, to Abraham, to Ishkak, to Yakub, to Yahusuf or Joseph, to Ephraim, then down to the Hamashiach. And so in order to inherit, we must be a firstborn son. And you are not a son of Yahuwah unless you are born from his loins, unless you are born from above. If you're still in the flesh, then you are a descendant of the first Adam. He's going to die because a judgment was pronounced over him that the day you partake of this fruit is the day that you're going to die. So he's not going to inherit. The firstborn of Adam, the descendants of the first Adam are not going to inherit because they're in the flesh. The first Adam, that inheritance was also passed down through the generations until we got to Asau. That's why it says that he, obviously he's not going to inherit. He's not going to inherit, but going further back and looking at Ishkak, this is why Ishmael didn't inherit, because he's a descendant of the first Adam. He's a descendant of the flesh. He wasn't born from above. Ishkak was. And so Ishkak is the son of promise, or was the son of promise. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we're talking about the different characteristics now between Esau and Jacob, between firstborn sons and those who were not. And so again, Adam the firstborn was the beginning of his father's strength. He looked more like his father and had more of his characteristics than anyone else. He passed these characteristics down to his firstborn and so on. And so the birthright is tied to the promise. The birthright is tied to the promise. What's the promise? And we're going to talk about the promise. But The birthright is tied to the promise. The promise is partly the inheritance. The promise is partly the inheritance. But is there something else? Let's continue this teaching, reading from Jubilees, the 20th chapter. Jubilees, the 20th chapter, beginning at verse 1. And in the 42nd Jubilee, in the first year of the 7th week, Abraham called Ishmael and his 12 sons, and Ishak and his 2 sons, and the 6 sons of Keturah and their sons. And he commanded them that they should observe the way of Yahuwah, that they should work righteousness and love each his neighbor, and act on this manner amongst all men, that they should each so walk with regard to them as to do judgment and righteousness on the earth, that they should circumcise their sons according to the covenant which he had made with them, and not deviate to the right hand or the left of all the paths which Yahuwah had commanded us, and that we should guard ourselves from all fornication and uncleanness, and renounce from amongst us all fornication and uncleanness. And if any woman or maid commit fornication amongst you, burn her with fire, and let them not commit fornication with her after their eyes and their heart. And let them not take to themselves women from the daughters of Canaan. For the seed of Canaan will be rooted out of the land. And he told them of the judgment of the Nephilim and the judgment of the Sadumim, how they had been judged on account of their wickedness, and had died on account of their fornication and uncleanness and mutual corruption through fornication. And guard yourselves from all fornication and uncleanness, and from all pollution of crime, lest you make our name a curse, and your whole life a hissing, and all your sons be destroyed by the sword, and you become a curse like Sodom, and all the remnant as the sons of Amorah. I implore you, my sons, love the Elohim of Shamayim, and cleave ye to all his commandments, and walk not after their idols, and after their uncleanness, and make not for yourselves molten or graven Elohim. For they are vanity, and there is no ruach in them. For they are work of men's hands, and all who trust in them trust in nothing. Serve them not, nor worship them, but serve ye all Ayum, and worship him continually, and expect for his countenance always, and work uprightness and righteousness before him, that he may have pleasure in you and grant you his compassion, and send rain upon you morning and evening. And barak all your works which you have wrought upon the earth, and barak your bread and your water, and barak the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your land, and the herds of your cattle, and the flocks of your sheep. And ye will be for a barakah on the earth, and ye will be for a barakah on the earth. And all nations of the earth will desire you, and barak your sons in my name, that they may be Baruch as I am. And he gave to Ishmael and to his sons and to the sons of Keturah gifts, and sent them away from Ishak his son. Why? Because Ishak was his firstborn. Ishak was his firstborn. I know Ishmael was the firstborn according to the flesh, but Ishak was his firstborn in accordance with the promise. In accordance with the promise. Ishak was not born of flesh, he was born of root. We're going to get more into this, I believe, in this teaching. But Ishak, this is why it is declared, in Ishak shall your seed be called. Send the son of the bondwoman away, because he will by no means inherit with Ishak. And he gave everything to Ishak his son. Indeed, the firstborn receives the inheritance. The firstborn receives the inheritance because the firstborn is more like his father than any of the other children. He is more like his father. He looks more like his father. He talks more like his father. He acts more like his father than any of the other children. And he gave everything to Ishak his son, the beginning of his strength, And Ishmael and his sons and the sons of Keturah and their sons went together and dwelt from Paran to the entering in of Babal and all the land which is towards the east facing the desert. And there mingled with each other, and their name was called Arabiim, or Arabs, and Ishmaelim. Yubilim, chapter 21. Yubilim, chapter 21. So Ishkak received the Barakah, the firstborn Barakah, because he was firstborn. And he was more like his father than Ishmael. He was more like his father than Ishmael. He had more of the characteristics of his father than Ishmael. Abraham was taught by Nuach and Shem and Eber. He had their characteristics. He had their characteristics. He was like them. Where did they get their characteristics from? From their fathers. From their fathers, going all the way back to Adam. Going all the way back to Adam. Going all the way back to him. All the way back to him. Jubilees, chapter 21. And in the 6th year of the 7th week of this Jubilee, Abraham called Ishkak, his son, and commanded him, saying, I am become old, and know not the day of my death, and am full of my days, and behold, I am 175 years old. And throughout all the days of my life I have remembered Yahuwah, and sought with all my heart to do his will, and to walk uprightly in all his ways. My soul has hated idols, given my heart and my ruach, that I might observe to do the will of him who created me. For he is the living Elohim, and he is kadush and faithful and trustworthy, and he is righteous beyond all. And there is with him no accepting of men's persons and no accepting of gifts. For Elohim is righteous and executes judgment on all those who transgress his commandments and despise his covenant. And do you, my son, observe his commandments and his ordinances and his judgments, and walk not after the abominations and after graven images and after the molten images, and eat no blood at all of animals or cattle, or of any bird which flies in the Shamayim. And if you do slay a victim as an acceptable shalom offering, slay ye it, and pour out his blood upon the altar, and all the fat of the offering offer on the altar with the flour and the meat offering mingled with oil, with his drink offering, after them all together on the altar of burnt offering. It is a sweet savor before Yahuwah. And you will offer the fat of the sacrifice of thank offerings on the fire which is upon the altar, and the fat which is on the belly, and all the fat on the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and all the fat that is upon them, and upon the loins and liver you shall remove together with the kidneys, and offer these for a sweet savor acceptable before Yahuwah, with its meat offering and with its drink offering, for sweet savor, the bread of the offering unto Yahuwah. And I'm not going to get into this, but the reason that the fat is burned up in the kidneys and the appendages is because the fat, it holds toxins, just like the kidney and liver, how it processes toxins. Toxins is a representation of crime and uncleanliness. Toxins is a representation of impurity. And so as these were consumed, it is a representation of crime, of impurities, and of toxins being consumed within his eternal fire. And eat its meat on that day and on the 2nd day, and let not the sun on the 2nd day go down upon it till it is eaten. And let nothing be left over for the 3rd day, for it is not acceptable, for it is not approved, and let it no longer be eaten. And all who eat thereof will bring crime upon themselves. For thus I have found it written in the Sepharim of my forefathers, for those who think that Torah was given at Mount Sinai, you're reading here, you're listening here, it was not. Torah is eternal because Torah is Yahuwah. Torah is Yahuwah. Torah is the word of Yahuwah. It is Yahuwah. He is Torah. He is righteousness. As Torah is righteous, he is righteous. There's none righteous but him. He is the living Torah. And so Torah was given to Adam. And it was passed down through the forefathers. Through the firstborn sons. It was taught to Noach. It was taught to Noach by Methuselah. It was taught to Methuselah by Canuk. Canuk taught the whole earth Torah. He taught the whole earth Torah. And it was Noach taught Shem and Eber. And Shem and Eber and Noach taught Abraham. They taught Abraham. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Torah is eternal. Torah is eternal. And so these if you're a Torah reader, you understand what is being read can be found in Torah. It can be found in Torah. So Torah is everlasting because it is Yahuwah. And Abraham observed Torah. It was taught to him by his righteous forefathers, by firstborn sons who are like him. And in the words of Canuk, let me start over. For this I have found it written in the Saphirim of my forefathers, which means books of my forefathers. And in the words of Canuk or Enoch, and in the words of Noach. And on all your oblations you shall strew salt, and let not the salt of the covenant be lacking in all your oblations. Indeed, this is not new. This is not new. It didn't begin with Masha. This is not new. This is not new. And let not the salt of the covenant be lacking in all your oblations before Yahuwah. Indeed, there is only one everlasting covenant. There is only one everlasting covenant, and that everlasting covenant is passed down and renewed through firstborn sons. It is passed down and renewed throughout the generations through firstborn sons. And that's why Yahusha had to come as firstborn so that the covenant could be renewed in him. Because it is only renewed through firstborn sons. I may be getting ahead of myself, but it is only renewed through firstborn sons who have the characteristics of their father. This is why Yahusha was the fullness of his father in body. He was the fullness of the father, rather, in body. In body. He had the characteristics of Yahuwah. A firstborn son has these characteristics. He has more of the characteristics of his father than anyone else. Reading on. And as regards to the wood of the sacrifices, beware lest you bring other wood for the altar in addition to these: cypress, bay, almond, fir, pine, cedar, savine, fig, olive, myrrh, laurel, asphaltus. And of these kinds of wood lay upon the altar under the sacrifice, such as has been tested as to their appearance. And do not lay thereon any split or dark wood, but hard and clean, without fault, a sound and new growth. And do not lay thereon old wood, for its fragrance is gone, for there is no longer fragrance in it as before. Besides these kind of wood, there is none other that you should place on the altar, for the fragrance is dispersed, and the smell of its fragrance goes not up to Shamayim. Observe this commandment and do it, my son, that you may be upright in all your deeds, and at all times be clean in your body, and wash yourself with water before you approach the altar to offer on the altar, and wash your hands and your feet before you draw near to the altar. See, this is nothing new. The Kahan did the same thing. This is nothing new. Nothing new. Why did they do it? Because they were Kahan. Not in the order of Levi or Louis or Aharon, but in the order of Melchizedek. In the order of Melchizedek. If Abba is Melchizedek, then his sons are also priests in the order of Melchizedek. I may touch that below. But this is why they were offering offerings and oblations, because they were Kahan. They were Kahan in the order of Melchizedek. And these same instructions that were given to the Kahan who were sons of Aharon, were practiced by them. You see, even Aharon and his sons were what? Were representations of the firstborn son. They were representations of the firstborn son. The firstborn son is Yasha'al, where it is written that Yasha'al is to be a nation of Kahanim, a nation of priests. And so we were never supposed to be a nation under priests. We were always supposed to be a nation of priests. But after my ancestors committed crime at Mount Sinai, we went from being a nation of Kahanim, a priests, to a nation under Kahanim. And so Aharon and his sons were mere representations of the firstborn son, Yasha'al. They were put in place to teach a nation of priests how to be priests. Nevertheless, if Abba is a priest, he is both priest and sovereign, then his sons are also priests, no different than the sons of Aharon. And so this is why these instructions were applicable to them as well here. And let no blood appear upon you, nor upon your clothes. Be on your guard, my son, against blood. Be on your guard exceedingly. Cover it with dust, and do not eat any blood, for it is the soul. Eat no blood whatsoever. And take no gifts for the blood of man, lest it be shed with impunity, without judgment. For it is the blood that is shed that causes the earth to commit crime. And the earth cannot be cleansed from the blood of man, save by the blood of him who shed it. And take no present or gift from the blood of man, blood for blood, that you may be accepted before Yahuwah, all Al-Yum. For he is the defense of the good, and that you may be preserved from all evil, and that he may save you from every kind of death. I see, my son, that all the works of the children of men are crime and wickedness, and all the deeds are uncleanness, and an abomination, and a pollution, and there is no righteousness with them. Beware, lest you should walk in their ways, and tread in their paths, and commit a crime unto death before all Al-Yum. Else he will hide his face from you, and give you back into the hands of your transgression, and root you out of the land, and your seed likewise from under Shamayim. And your name and your seed shall perish from the whole earth. Turn away from all their deeds and all their uncleanness, and observe the ordinance of all Al-Yum, and do his will, and be upright in all things. So he's giving these instructions to Ishkak, which are the instructions of Yahuwah. This is Torah. This is the express desire of Yahuwah. His instructions, these are the words that proceed from his heart. These are the words that proceed from his mouth, that come from his heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so these are his instructions in which his sons are obeying. These same instructions which he gave to Adam, which he gave to his firstborn son. And then Adam passed those same instructions down to his firstborn son. And they were passed down throughout the generations. And so now, until we got to Abraham, and now we're reading here where Abraham is passing down these very same instructions to his son. What are the instructions again? The instructions of Torah. What is Torah? The very nature and the very character of Yahuwah. And so when his firstborn son obeys his instructions, we too take on his nature and his character. We take on his nature and his character. Indeed, this is the characteristic of a firstborn son, the nature and the character of his father, Barak Yahuwah. This is why the nations are not his sons. This is why the Gentiles are not his sons. And we're going to get more into what it means to be his son. But this is why the nations, the Gentiles, are not his sons, because they don't obey him. They don't have his character. They don't have his nature. Only his firstborn son has his nature and his character. Indeed, we're still talking about the characteristics between Asau and Yaakov. And he will barak you in all your deeds, and will raise up from you a plan of righteousness through all the earth, throughout all generations of the earth. And my name and your name shall not be forgotten under Shamayim forever. Go, my son, in Shalom, May all Ayun, my Elohim and your Elohim, strengthen you to do his will. And may he barak all your seed and the remnant of your seed for the generations forever, with all righteous blessings, barakah, that barakut rather, that you may be a barakah on all the earth. And he went out from him celebrating. Jubilees chapter 22. Jubilees chapter 22. And it came to pass in the first week, in the 44th Jubilee, and the second year, that is, the year in which Abraham died, that Ishak and Ishmael came from the well of the oath to celebrate the feast of Shavuot, that is, the feast of the first fruits of the harvest to Abraham, their father. And Abraham celebrated because his two sons had come. For Ishak had many possessions in Baal Shabbat, and Ishak was wont to go and see his possessions and to return to his father. And in those days Ishmael came to see his father, and they both came together. And Ishak offered a sacrifice for a burnt offering, and presented it on the altar of his father, which he had made in Cabron. And he offered a thank offering, and made a feast of celebration before Ishmael, his brother. And Rebekah made new cakes for the new grain, and gave them to Jacob, her son, and gave them to Jacob, her son, to take them to Abraham, his father. It doesn't say grandfather. It says to take them to Abraham, his father, from the first fruits of the land, that he might eat and barak the creator of all things before he died. And Ishak too sent by the hand of Jacob to Abraham a best thank offering, that he might eat and drink. And he ate and drank and barak and Baruch all Ayun, who has created Shamaim and earth, and who has made all the fat things of the earth, and given them to the children of men, that they might eat and drink and barak their creator. And now I give thanks unto you, my Elohim, because you have caused me to see this day. Behold, I am 115 years, an old man, and full of days. And all my days have been unto me shalom. The sword of the adversary has not overcome me in all that you have given me and my children all the days of my life until this day. My Elohim, may your compassion and your shalom be upon your servant and upon the seed of his sons, that they may be to you a chosen nation and an inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, from henceforth unto all days of the generations of the earth, unto all the ages. And he called Jacob and said, my son Jacob, may the Elohim of all barak you and strengthen you to do righteousness and his will before him. And may he choose you and your seed, that ye may become a people for his inheritance, according to his will always. And do you, my son Jacob, draw near and kiss me. And he drew near and kissed him. And he said, Baruch be my son Jacob, and all the sons of all Ayun, unto all the ages. May Elohim give unto you a seed of righteousness, and some of your sons may he separate a kadush in the midst of the whole earth. May nations serve you, and all the nations bow themselves before your seed. Be strong in the presence of men, and exercise authority over all the seed of Shaph. Then your ways and the ways of your sons will be justified, so that they shall become a kadush nation. May all Ayun give you all the barakut, wherewith he has baruch me, and wherewith he baruch Nuach, and listen, and Adam. Indeed, this righteous seed was passed from Adam all the way down to now we're here at Abraham, and now we're talking about Ishak and Jacob. May they rest on the sacred head of your seed. May what rest on the sacred head of your seed? Let's read this again. May all Ayun give you all the barakut, wherewith he has baruch me, and wherewith he baruch Nuach and Adam, his firstborn sons. his firstborn sons. We're talking about the firstborn Barakah. And why these men? Because they were more like their father, Yahuwah, than any of the other children. They had his character and his characteristics. Indeed, I just told you that Yahuwah is Torah. And if we obey Torah, then we take on his nature and his character. Yes, Yaqub obeyed Torah. And he was more like Abraham. He was more like Ishkak than Esau was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. May they rest on the sacred head of your seed from generation to generation forever. And may he cleanse you from all unrighteousness and impurity, that you may be forgiven all the transgressions which you have committed ignorantly. And may he strengthen you and barak you, and may you inherit the whole earth. What? May you inherit the whole earth. Wait a minute, I thought this was given to Adam. The earth, it was. It was. But we are his seed. We are representations of Adam. At Yasha'al are representations of of Adam. And when the completion of all things have been accomplished, we're going to rule once again the Arats. We're going to rule once again the Arats. This is what's at play. This is what is going to be restored. But Esau is not going to rule. Esau is not going to reign. Esau is like Ishmael. He will not inherit. He will not inherit. And so now, indeed, we're continuing to talk about the characteristics between Esau and Yaqub. We're continuing to talk about the characteristics between them and talking about the covenant of creation. Esau rejected his birthright. What about you? Esau rejected his birthright. What about you? Let's read on. And may you inherit the whole earth, and may he renew his covenant. Are you listening? And may he renew his covenant with you. And may he renew his covenant with you. I just told you that the everlasting covenant is renewed with firstborn sons. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this is why Yahusha had to come as firstborn. This is why Yahuwah put on flesh and came as Yahusha, the firstborn of all creation. He came not so much as the firstborn son of Yahuwah, because he is Yahuwah. He came as a representation of his firstborn son, Yasha'al, and by extension, Adam. And by extension, Adam. And so this is why he had all of the characteristics in that body of the Father, showing us the way, showing us what a true firstborn son looks like. He has the characteristics of his father. And if you recall, Yahuwah in that body obeyed every word of the Torah that was given to him. He neither turned to the right or to the left. He obeyed every command. This is the characteristic of a firstborn son. Because if we obey Torah, which is the very nature and character of Yahuwah, then we take on his nature and characteristics. We look like him. We look like him because now in obeying Torah, we began to act like him and look like him and speak like him. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. That you may be to him, let me go back, and may you inherit the whole earth, and may he renew his covenant with you. And may he renew his covenant with you. Indeed, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but he only renews his covenant with firstborn sons. We're going to talk about this. He only renews his covenant with firstborn sons. His covenant was only made with his firstborn son, Yasha'al, and by extension, Adam. It was only made with him and all these firstborn sons throughout the generation. It wasn't made with nobody else. His everlasting covenant was only made with firstborn sons. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Barak Yahuwah. And unless you are a firstborn son, he ain't renewing his covenant with you. He's not renewing his covenant with you. We're going to talk about this further. That you may be to him a nation for his inheritance for all the ages, and that he may be to you and to your seed an Elohim in truth and righteousness throughout all the days of the earth. And do you, my son Yaqub, remember my words and observe the commandments of Abraham, your father. Separate yourselves from the nations and eat not with them, and do not according to their works, and be and become not their associate. For their works are unclean, and all their ways are a pollution and an abomination and uncleanness. They offer their sacrifices to the dead, and they worship evil ruach, and they eat over the graves, and all their works are vanity and nothingness. They have no heart to understand, and their eyes do not see what their works are, and how they err in saying to a place of wood, you are my Elohim, and to a stone, you are my Adani, and you are my deliverer. And they have no heart. And as for you, my son Yaqub, may all Ayun help you, and the Elohim of Shamaim barak you and remove you from their uncleanness and from all their error. Be you ware, my son Yaqub, of taking a woman from any seed of the daughters of Canaan. For all his seed is to be rooted out of the earth. For owing to the transgression of Canaan erred, and all his seed shall be destroyed from off the earth, and all the remnant thereof, and none springing from him shall be saved on the day of judgment. And as for all the worshipers of idols and the profane, there shall be no hope, no expectation for them in the land of the living, and there shall be no remembrance of them on the earth. For they shall descend into Shaul, and into the place of condemnation shall they go. As the children of Sadum were taken away from the earth, so will all those who worship idols be taken away. Fear not, my son, Yaqub, and be not dismayed, O son of Abraham. May all Ayun guard you from destruction, and from all the paths error may he deliver you. This house I have built for myself, that I might put my name upon it in the earth. It is given to you and to your seed forever, and it will be named the house of Abraham. It is given to you and to your seed forever. For you will build my house and establish my name before Elohim forever. Your seed and your name will stand throughout all generations of the earth. Why? Because Yaqub was more like his father Abraham, and more like his father Ishkak, and more like his father Eber, and Shem, and Noach, and Methuselah, and Kanuk, than Esau was. Than Esau was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And his descendants are likewise more like him. His descendants carry these very same characteristic traits. His descendants, the true descendants of Yaqub and Abraham and Ishkak, carry these very same characteristics going all the way back to Adam. Anyone who doesn't have these characteristics, they're not firstborn sons. They're not firstborn sons. They are of another seed. They are of another seed. They are Edomites. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They are seed of Cain. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They are not seed of Abraham if they do not carry these characteristics. These are the distinguishing factors or characteristics that separate a firstborn son from one who was not a firstborn son. We're still talking about the characteristics of Jacob and Esau as we read on. And he ceased commanding him and barakah him. And the two lay together on one bed. And Yaqub slept in the bosom of Abraham, his father's father. And he kissed him 7 times. And his affection and his heart celebrated over him. And he baruch him with all his heart and said, All Ayun, the Elohim of all, and creator of all, who brought me forth from of the Kasdiim, that he might give me this land to inherit it forever, that I might establish a Kadush seed, Baruch be all Ayun forever. So we see here that Abraham loved Yaqub. He loved him because Yaqub was more like him than Esau. He recognized that Yaqub had his characteristics. He recognized that Yaqub had the characteristics of Yahuwah, because this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the characteristics of our father, Yahuwah. This is what we're talking about, and this is what Abraham saw in Yaqub. And he Baruch Yaqub, and said, my son, over whom with all my heart and my affection I celebrate. May your favor and your compassion be lifted up upon him and upon his seed always. And do not forsake him, nor set him at naught from henceforth unto the days of eternity. And may your eyes be open upon him and upon his seed, that you may guard him and barak him, and may sanctify him and separate him as a nation for your inheritance. And barak him with all your barakut from henceforth until all the days of eternity. And renew, here it is again, and renew your covenant and your favor with him and with his seed, according to all your good pleasure unto all the generations of the earth. And we understand that the seed of Yaqub, Yasha'al, is the firstborn son of Yahuwah. Yasha'al indeed is his firstborn son. And the covenants, the barakut, the firstborn barakah, the covenants are only given. The covenant is only renewed with firstborn sons. The covenant is only renewed with firstborn sons. Yobelim now, chapter 23, and I'm only going to read verse 1 through 4. And he placed two fingers of Yaqub on his eyes, and he baraked the Elohim of Elohim, and he covered his face and stretched out his feet and slept the sleep of eternity, and was gathered to his fathers. And notwithstanding all this, Yaqub was lying in his bosom. He loved Yaqub and Yaqub. He loved Yaqub, and Yaqub loved him, because he was like him. He was like him. And Abraham recognized this, and knew not that Abraham, his father's father, was dead. And Yaqub awoke from his sleep, and behold, Abraham was cold as ice. And he said, Father, Father. But there was none that spoke. And he knew that he was dead. And he arose from his bosom, and ran and told Rebekah, his mother. And Rebekah went to Ishkak in the night, and told him. And they went together. And Yaqub with them, and a lamp was in his hand. And when they had gone in, they found Abraham lying dead. Lying dead. Let's look now at Yashar, the 27th chapter. We're still talking about the characteristics, the different characteristics between Jacob and Esau. Jacob, the firstborn son, and Esau, who sold his birthright. And Esau, who sold his birthright as firstborn son. He sold it. He rejected it. He despised his birthright. Jasher 27. And Asau at that time, after the death of Abraham, frequently went in the field to hunt. And Namrud, Malach of Babal, the same was Amraphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field, and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. And Namrud was observing Asau all the days, for a jealousy was formed in the heart of Namrud against Asau all the days. And on a certain day, Asau went in the field to hunt, and he found Namrud walking in the wilderness with his two men. And all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness. It's interesting that both Asau and Namrud were men of the field. They were both hunters. They were both hunters. This is another characteristic of Esau. They were both hunters. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go out in the woods and hunt to be a hunter. To be a hunter, whereby the seed of Yaqub are what? Are fishermen. Are sheep herders and fishermen. Barak Yahuwah. But they removed at a distance from him, and they went from him in a different direction to hunt. And also concealed himself from Namrud, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. And Namrud and his men that were with him did not know him. And Namrud and his men frequently walked about in the field at the cool of the day to know where his men were hunting in the field. And Namrud and two of his men that were with him came to the place where they were, when Asau started suddenly from his lurking place and drew his sword and hastened and ran to Namrud and cut off his head. And Asau fought a desperate fight with the two men that were with Namrud. And when they called out to him, Asau turned to him and smote them to death with his sword. And all the mighty men of Namrud who had left him to go to the wilderness heard the cry at a distance. And they knew the voice of those two men. And they ran to know the cause of it, when they found their Malak and the two men that were with him lying dead in the wilderness. And when Asau saw the mighty men of Namrud coming at a distance, he fled, and thereby escaped. And Asau took the valuable garments of Namrud, which Namrud's father had bequeathed to Namrud, and with which Namrud prevailed over the whole land. And so here we read, now these garments here that are discussed are the garments in which Ham stole from Nuak. What garments are these? These are the very garments that Yahuwah made for Adam and Kua when they fell, when he covered their shame, in which he slew 2 sheep of the earth and covered their shame. And these garments gave them authority over the beasts of the field. And he did this so that after the fall, the beasts of the field, the animals of the earth, would not turn against them and devour them. So it gave them power and authority over the animals. Well, these garments came into the hand of Kanuk. And Kanuk gave these garments, they were passed down. They were passed down throughout the generations, through firstborn sons. Kanuk passed them to Methuselah, and Methuselah gave them to Nuak. Kam then stole them from Nuak and gave them to his firstborn son, Cush. Gave them to his son, Cush. Cush then gave them to Namrud, his firstborn son. Cush then gave them to Namrud. And so these garments gave him power over the earth, and thus he became a mighty hunter. And so here we read that Asau took these garments from Namrud, and he too became a mighty hunter. He too became a mighty hunter. And Asau took the valuable garments of Namrud, which Namrud's father had bequeathed to Namrud, and with which Namrud prevailed over the whole land. And he ran and concealed them in his house. And Asau took those garments and ran into the city on account of Namrud's men. And he came into his father's house wearied and exhausted from fight. And he was ready to die through grief when he approached his brother Yaqub and sat before him. And now we're getting into why he sold his birthright, or how it came about that he sold his birthright. And he said unto his brother Yaqub, Behold, I shall die this day, and wherefore then do I want the birthright? And wherefore then do I want the birthright? So he would rather eat, fill his belly, than hold on to his birthright. You see, a true firstborn son would rather die than sell his birthright. You see, a true firstborn son would rather die than disobey his father, whereby losing his birthright, whereby losing the characteristics of his father. A true firstborn son would rather die, but he, rather than die, he would rather sell his birthright. He would rather sell his birthright. And Yaqub acted with prudence with Asau in this matter, and also sold his birthright to Yaqub, for it was so brought about by Yahuwah. And Asau's portion in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Koth, for the possessions of a burial ground, Asau also sold to Yaqub. And Yaqub bought all this from his brother Asau for value given. And Yaqub wrote the whole of this in a sefer, and he testified the same with witnesses, and he sealed it. And the sefer, a book, remained in the hands of Yaqub. And when Namrud, the son of Cush, died, his men lifted him up and brought him in consternation and buried him in his city. And all the days that Namrud lived there were 215 years, and he died. And the days that Nimrod reigned upon the people of the land were 185 years. And Namrud died by the sword of Asau. And Namrud died by the sword of Asau in shame and contempt. And the seed of Abraham caused this death, as he had seen in his dream. You have to read the earlier chapters of Jasher to get that understanding. And at the death of Namrud, his kingdom became divided into many divisions. And all those parts that Namrud reigned over were restored to the respective sovereigns of the land, who recovered them after the death of Namrud. And all the people of the house of Namrud were a long time enslaved to all the other sovereigns of the land. Jasher the 28th chapter. How are we doing for time? Barak Yahuwah. Jasher the 28th chapter. And in those days, after the death of Abraham, in that year Yahuwah brought a heavy famine in the land. And while the famine was raging in the land of Canaan, Ishkak rose up to go down to Mashraim on account of the famine, as his father Abraham had done. And Yahuwah appeared that night to Ishkak, and he said to him, do not go down to Mashraim, but rise and go to Gerar, to Abimelech, sovereign of the Philistines, and remain there till the famine shall cease. And Ishkak rose up and went to Gerar, as Yahuwah commanded him, and he remained there a full year. And when Ishkak came to Gerar, the people of the land saw that Rebekah, his woman, was of a beautiful appearance. And the people of Gerar asked Ishkak concerning his woman. And he said, she is my sister. For he was afraid to say she was his woman, lest the people of the land should slay him on account of her. And the princess of Abimelech went and praised the woman to the Malach. But he answered them not. Neither did he attend to their words. But he heard them say that Ishkak declared her to be his sister. So the Malach reserved this within himself. And when Ishkak had remained 3 months in the land, Abimelech looked out the window, and he saw, and behold, Ishkak was sporting with Rebekah his woman. For Ishkak dwelt in the outer houses, in the outer house belonging to the Malach, so that the house of Ishkak was opposite the house of the Malach. And the Malach said unto Ishkak, what is this you have done to us in saying of your woman, she is my sister? How easily might one of the great men of the people have lain with her, and you would then have brought guilt upon us. And Ishkak said unto Abimelech, because I was afraid, lest I die on account of my woman. Therefore I said, she is my sister. At that time Abimelech gave orders to his princes and great men, and they took Ishkak and Rebekah his woman, and brought them before the Malach. And the Malach commanded that they should dress them in princely garments, and make them ride through the streets of the city, and proclaim before them throughout the land, saying, this is the man, and this is his woman. This is the man, and this is his woman. Whosoever touches this man or his woman shall surely die. And Ishkak returned with his woman to the Malach's house, and Yahuwah was with Ishkak, and he continued to wax great and lacked nothing. And Yahuwah caused Ishkak to find favor in the sight of Abimelech, and in the sight of all his subjects. And Abimelech acted well with Ishkak, for Abimelech remembered the oath and the covenant that existed between his father and Abraham. And Abimelech said unto Ishkak, behold, the whole earth is before you. Dwell wherever it may seem good in your sight, until you shall return to your land. And Abimelech gave Ishkak fields and vineyards, and the best part of the land of Gerar, to sow and reap and eat the fruits of the ground until the days of the famine should have passed by. And Ishkak sowed in that land, and received 100-fold in the same year, and Yahuwah baruch him. And the man waxed great, and he had possession of flocks, and possession of herds, and great store of servants. And when the days of the famine had passed away, Yahuwah appeared to Ishkak and said unto him, rise up, go forth from this place, and return to your land, to the land of Canaan. And Ishkak rose up and returned to Cabroon, which is the land of Canaan, he and all belonging to him, as Yahuwah commanded him. And after this, Shalach, the son of Arpachshad, died in that year, which is the 18th year, of the lives of Yaqub and Asau. And all the days that Shalach lived were 433 years, and he died. And at that time, Ishkak sent his younger son, Yaqub, to the house of Sham and Eber, Sham being the son of Nuach, or Shem being the son of Noah. And at that time, Ishkak sent his younger son, Yaqub, to the house of Sham, or Shem, and Eber, or Abba, and he learned the instructions of Yahuwah. And he learned the instructions of Yahuwah. In other words, he learned the character of Yahuwah, and he took upon himself those self-same characteristics. And Yaqub remained in the house of Sham and Eber for 32 years. And Asau, listen, and Asau, his brother, did not go, for he was not willing to go. And he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. So, again, we understand that Torah is the very nature and character of Yahuwah. And when we learn it and obey it, we take on his nature and his character. And thus, the firstborn son, once again, having more of the nature and more of the character of his father than any of the other children. But Asau, his brother, did not go. He didn't want to take on the character of firstborn son. Indeed, he sold his birthright. He didn't want to take on the characteristics of the father. He didn't want to learn his instructions. He didn't want to learn Torah, which is the very nature and character of Yahuwah. He didn't want to. He refused to go. So he not only sold his birthright, but he did not want to take on the character and nature of the father. Thus, Yahuwah took it from him in the first place, because he didn't have his nature and he didn't have his character. Reading on here. So Yaqub remained in the house of Sham and Eber for 32 years. And Asau, his brother, did not go, for he was not willing to go. And he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. And Asau was continually hunting in the fields to bring home what he could get, just like Nimrod or Namrud. He was a hunter. Indeed, they're related. Esau and Namrud are related. They're from the same seed. They're both from the seed of Cain. Yes, they are. We're not talking about the flesh. We're talking about the root of a man. And Asau was continually hunting in the fields to bring home what he could get. So did Asau all the days. And Asau was a designing, listen, still talking about the characteristics, the different characteristics. And Asau was a designing and deceitful man. This is why Abraham didn't like him. Abraham did not like him. He did not. He chose Yaqub because he recognized that Yaqub had his characteristics. He had his nature, which by extension is the very character and nature of Adam, and which by extension is the very character and nature of Yahuwah himself. And Asau was a designing and deceitful man, one who hunted after the hearts of men. Are you listening? And Asau was a designing and deceitful man, one who hunted after the hearts of men and invade them, just like his relative Nimrod or Namrud, just like him, just like Cain. And Asau was a valiant man in the field, and in the course of time went as usual to hunt. And he came as far as the field of Seir, the same is Adum. And he remained in the land of Seir, hunting in the field 1 year and 4 months. And Asau there saw in the land of Seir the daughter of a man of Canaan, and her name was Yehudith, the daughter of Ba'ari, son of Aphah, from the families of Kaf, the son of Canaan. And Asau took her. Now Abraham specifically gave Yaqub instructions not to marry any of the daughters of Canaan. But Asau could care less. He could care less because he didn't have the characteristics and nature of Abraham, and by extension, the characteristics of Adam, and by extension, the characteristics of Yahuwah himself. And Asau took her for a woman. And he came unto her. 40 years old was Asau when he took her. And he brought her to Cabroon, the land of his father's dwelling place. And he dwelt there. And it came to pass in those days, in the 110th year of the life of Ishkak, that is, in the 50th year of the life of Yaqub, in that year died Sham, the son of Nuach. Sham was 600 years old at his death. And when Sham died, Yaqub returned to his father to Cabroon, which is in the land of Canaan. So we see here once more that firstborn sons teach firstborn sons. They teach them. This is passed on. That characteristic is passed down through firstborn sons. And so we find here that Yaqub was taught by Shem. He was taught by Shem and Eber. His father Ishkak was also taught by Shem and Eber. And his father Abraham was taught by Shem, Eber, and Nuach. And so they passed these characteristics down. These are the characteristics of a firstborn son, and that is the very nature and character of Yahuwah himself. And when Sham died, Yaqub returned to his father to Cabroon, which is in the land of Canaan. And in the 56th year of the life of Yaqub, people came from Haran, and Rebekah was told concerning her brother Laban, the son of Bethuel. For the woman of Laban was barren in those days, and bore no children, and also all his handmaids bore none to him. And Yahuwah afterward remembered Adinah, the woman of Laban, and she conceived and bore twin daughters. And Laban called the names of his daughters, the name of the elder Leah, and the name of the younger Rachel. Yes, they were twins. And those people came and told these things to Rebekah, and Rebekah celebrated greatly that Yahuwah had visited her brother and that he had got children. Barak Yahuwah. Jasher 29. Jasher chapter 29, still talking about the characteristics between Yaqub and Asau. And Asau talking about the covenant of creation. The covenant of creation. The covenant of creation, which is passed down to firstborn sons. Indeed, Asau sold his birthright. What about you? Asau sold his birthright. What about you? Jasher 29. And Ishkak, the son of Abraham, became old and advanced in days, and his eyes became heavy through age. They were dim and could not see. At that time Ishkak called unto Asau his son, saying, Get, I pray you, your weapons, your quiver, and your bow. Rise up and go forth into the field, and get me some venison, and make me savory meat, and bring it to me, that I may eat in order that I may barak you before my death, as I have now become old and gray-headed. And Asau did so. And he took his weapon and went forth into the field to hunt for venison, as usual, to bring to his father as he had ordered him, so that he might barak him. And Rebekah heard of all the words that Ishkak had spoken unto Asau. And she hastened and called her son, Yaqub, saying, Thus did your father speak unto your brother Asau, and thus did I hear. Now therefore, hasten you and make that which I shall tell you. Rise up and go, I pray you, to the flock, and fetch me 2 fine kids of goats. And I will get the savory meat for your father, and you shall bring the savory meat that he may eat before your brother shall have come from the chase, in order that your father may barak you. And Yaqub hastened and did as his mother had commanded him. And he made the savory meat. And brought it before his father, before Asau had come from his chase. And Ishkak said unto Yaqub, Who are you, my son? And he said, I am your firstborn, Asau. Indeed, he is the firstborn. He is not Asau, but he is the firstborn. I have done as you did order me. Now therefore, rise up, I pray you, and eat of my hunt, in order that your nephash may barak me as you did speak unto me. And Ishkak rose up, and he ate and he drank, and his heart was comforted. And he Baruch Yaqub. And Yaqub went away from his father. And as soon as Ishkak had Baruch Yaqub, and had gone away from him, behold, Asau came from his hunt from the field. And he also made savory meat and brought it to his father to eat thereof and to barak him. And Ishkak said unto Asau, and Ishkak said unto Asau, and who was he that has taken venison and brought it me before you came, and whom did I barak? And Asau knew that his brother Yaqub had done this, and the anger of Asau was kindled against his brother Yaqub, that he had acted thus toward him. And Asau said, is he not rightly called Yaqub? For he has supplanted me twice. He took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my barakah. Not understanding that the birthright and the barakah are synonymous. You can't separate the two. The birthright and the barakah are indeed synonymous. And Asau wept greatly. And when Ishkak heard the voice of his son, Asau weeping, Ishkak said unto Asau, what can I do, my son? Your brother came with subtlety and took away your barakah. And Asau hated his brother Yaqub on account of the barakah that his father had given him. And his anger was greatly roused against him. And Yaqub was very much afraid of his brother Asau. And he rose up and fled to the house of Abba, the son of Sham. And he concealed himself there on account of his brother. And Yaqub was 63 years old when he went forth from the land of Canaan from Cabroon. And Yaqub was concealed in Abba's house 14 years on account of his brother Asau. And there continued to learn. And there continue to learn the ways of Yahuwah. Continue to learn his character and his nature. And take on this very character and nature himself. Thus being more like his father than any of the other children. Being more like his father than any of the other children. Indeed, this is why the nations of Gentiles are not his children. This is why the nations of the Gentiles are not going to inherit. They're not firstborn sons. They are his children. But only the firstborn gets the inheritance of the father. But this is why the Gentiles are not going to inherit because they don't have the very nature and character of the father. They don't obey his instructions. His instructions is his nature and character. They don't obey them. And so they don't have his nature and his character, thus being firstborn sons, and thus they're not going to inherit. They're not going to inherit. So it reads here, and he there continued to learn the ways of Yahuwah and his commandments. And when Asau saw that Yaqub had fled and escaped from him, and that Yaqub had cunningly obtained the barakah, then Asau grieved exceedingly, and he was also vexed at his father and mother. And he also rose up and took his woman and went away from his father and mother to the land of Seir. If you know anything about Edomites, they were wicked people. They were and are wicked people, because now we're talking about not only a physical seed, but we're talking about a spiritual seed of Asau. We're talking about a spiritual seed of Asau. I don't know if you understand, but in the end, only sheep and goats are going to be, there's going to come down to a distinction between sheep and goats. The sheep are Israel, the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. The sheep are Yasharal. The goats are Esau. The goats are Esau. The goats are Edomites. The goats are the seed of Cain. They are the seed of Cain. It's going to come down to two people. Jacob and Esau, sheep and goats, firstborn sons and everybody else. Firstborn sons and everybody else. Indeed, only firstborn sons are going to enter into life. Only firstborn sons are going to inherit it. Both the native born and the stranger alike, those who have been grafted into Yasharal. Both the native born and stranger alike. Only the firstborn son is going to inherit the inheritance of the father. Only he is going to get the firstborn barakah, which is the Arats. Edomites are very wicked people. They are hateful people. They are hunters. They are an idolatrous people. Always have been. They have always rejected the promise. They have always rejected the inheritance. And they continue to do so unto this day. We're going to talk more about this. It's going to take up a part 4, but we're going to talk more about this. Barak Yahuwah. And he dwelt there. And also saw there a woman from amongst the daughters of Kaf, whose name was Basma, the daughter of Ailum, the Kittiyin. And he took her for a woman in addition to his first woman. And also called her name Adah, saying the Barakah had in that time passed from him. And Asau dwelt in the land of Seir 6 months without seeing his father and mother. And afterwards Asau took his woman and rose up and returned to the land of Canaan. And Asau placed his 2 women in his father's house in Cabrum. And the women of Asau vexed and provoked Ishkak and Rebekah. He was disrespectful. He did not respect his father and mother. He was idolatrous. He cared not for his birthright. He cares not for the instructions of Yahuwah. He cares not. He is a wicked seed. A wicked seed that cares for nothing but his belly. That cares for nothing for his own personal gain. And the woman of Asau vexed and provoked Ishkak and Rebekah with their works, for they walked not in the ways of Yahuwah, but served their fathers Elohim of wood and stone, as their fathers had taught them. And Asau is allowing this to go on in his house because he too is doing it. And they were more wicked than their father. And they went according to the evil desires of their hearts. And they sacrificed and burnt incense to the Baalim. And Ishkak and Rebekah became weary of them. And Rebekah said, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Kaf. If Yakub take a woman of the daughters of Kaf, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, what good then is life unto me? And in those days Adah, the woman of Asau, conceived and bore him a son. And Asau called the name of the son that was born unto him Eliphaz. And Asau was 65 years old when she bore him. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, died in those days, in the 64th year of the life of Yakub. And all the days that Ishmael lived were 137 years, and he died. And when Ishkak heard that Ishmael was dead, he mourned for him. And Ishkak lamented over him many days. And at the end of 14 years of Yakub's residing in the house of Abba, Yakub desired to see his father and mother. And Yakub came to the house of his father and mother to Cabrum. All this time he was away learning the nature and character of Yahuwah, whereby taking on that nature and character upon himself through his obedience to his instructions. And Asau had in those days forgotten what Yakub had done to him, and having taken the Barakah from him in those days. And when Asau saw Yakub coming to his father and mother, he remembered what Yakub had done to him, and he was greatly incensed against him, and he sought to slay him. And Ishkak, the son of Abraham, was old and advanced in days. And Asau said, now my father's time and drawing nigh that he must die. Is drawing nigh that he must die. And when he shall die, I will slay my brother Yakub. And this was told to Rebekah, and she hastened and sent and called for Yakub her son. And she said unto him, arise, go and flee to Haran to my brother Laban, and remain there for some time until your brother's anger be turned from you, and then shall you come back. And Ishkak called unto Yakub and said unto him, take not a woman from the daughters of Canaan, for thus did our father Abraham command us according to the word of Yahuwah, according to the Torah of Yahuwah, which he had commanded him, saying, unto your seed will I give this land. If your children guard my covenant that I have made with you, then will I also perform to your children that which I have spoken unto you, and will not forsake them. Now therefore, my son, hearken to my voice, to all that I shall command you, and refrain from taking a woman from amongst the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Haran, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take unto you a woman from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Therefore, take heed, lest you should forget Yahuwah Elohaicha, and all his ways in the land of which you go, and should be connected with the people of the land, and pursue vanity, and forsake Yahuwah Alu Ha'ika, which is to say, your Elohim. But when you come to the land, serve their Yahuwah. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Do not turn to the right or to the left from the way which I commanded you, and which you did learn. And may all Shaddai grant you favor in the sight of the people of the earth, that you may take their woman according to your choice, one who is good and upright in the ways of Yahuwah. And may Elohim give unto you and your seed the barakah of your father Abraham, and make you fruitful and multiply you, and may you become a multitude of people in the land whither you go. And may Elohim cause you to return to this land, the land of your father's dwelling, with children and with great riches, with gladness and with pleasure. And Ishkak finished commanding Yaqub and barakah him, and giving him barakah. And he gave him many gifts together with silver and gold, and he sent him away. And Yaqub hearkened to his father and mother. And Yaqub hearkened to his father and mother. He honored his father and mother. He honored his father and mother, whereby obeying the instructions of his father, whereby taking on his characteristics and nature, whereby this is why he is firstborn. He kissed them and arose and went to Padan Aram. And Yaqub was 77 years old when he went out from the land of Canaan from Baal Sheba. And when Yaqub went away to go to Haran, Asau called unto his son Eliphaz, and secretly spoke unto him, saying, Now hasten, take your sword in your hand, and pursue Yaqub, and pass before him in the road, and lurk for him. We're still unraveling the characteristics of Esau and the characteristics of Yaqub. Esau is lawless. Esau is lawless, whereby he does not have the characteristics of his father. He does not have the characteristics of his father, and whereby the covenant, the barakah, the firstborn barakah, was not renewed with him. It was not renewed with him, and it's not going to be renewed with his seed unless they tashuba, unless they repent, and slay him with your sword in one of the mountains, and take all belonging to him, and come back. And Eliphaz, the son of Asau, was an active man, an expert with the bow, as his father had taught him. And he was a noted hunter in the field, and a valiant man. And Eliphaz did as his father had commanded him. And Eliphaz was at that time 13 years old. And Eliphaz rose up and went and took 10 of his mother's brothers with him, and pursued Yaqub. And he closely followed Yaqub, and he lurked for him in the border of the land of Canaan, opposite the city of Shechem. And Yaqub saw Eliphaz and his men pursuing him, and Yaqub stood still in the place in which he was going, in order to know what this was, for he did not know the thing. And Eliphaz drew his sword, and he went on advancing, he and his men, toward Yaqub. And Yaqub said unto them, What is to do with you that you have come hither? And what does it mean that you pursue with your swords? And Eliphaz came near to Yaqub, and he answered and said unto him, Thus did my father command me, and now therefore I will not deviate from the orders which my father gave me. And when Yaqub saw that Asau had spoken to Eliphaz to employ force, Yaqub then approached and supplicated Eliphaz and his men, saying to him, Behold, all that I have, and which my father and mother gave unto me, that take unto you and go from me, and do not slay me. And may this thing be accounted unto you a righteousness. And Yahuwah caused Yaqub to find favor in the sight of Eliphaz, the son of Asau, and his men, and they hearkened to the voice of Yaqub, and they did not put him to death. And Eliphaz and his men took all belonging to Yaqub, together with silver and gold that he had brought with him from Baal-sheba. They left him nothing. And YAHUAH'S and his men went away from him, and they returned to Asau to Baal-sheba. And they told them all that had occurred to them with Yaqub, and they gave him all that they had taken from Yaqub. And Asau was indignant at YAHUAH'S son and at his men that they were with him, because they had not put Yaqub to death. So here, another characteristic of Asau is that he is a hater of his brother. He hates his brother. I pray that I don't have to elaborate on this. There is a certain segment of people who call themselves Israelites who are very hateful, who hate their brothers. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And so here we find another characteristic of Asau is that he hates his brother. And in the writings of Yahuchanan, we read there that no one can say that they love Yahuwah and hate their brother. Because how can you say that you love Yahuwah who you cannot see, but hate your brother who you do see? You're a liar. You cannot hate your brother and love Yahuwah who you cannot see. It's because love is of Yahuwah. This is Torah. To love your brother, to love your neighbor as you love yourself, and to love Yahuwah with all your heart, mind, and strength. This is one command. This is one command. We show our neighbor that we love him through our obedience to Torah. We show Yahuwah that we love him through our obedience to Torah. This is one command. This is one command. And thus those who love their neighbor take on the characteristic of Yahuwah. We take on the characteristic of Yahuwah because we obey Torah. We obey Torah. Barak Yahuwah. You cannot say that you obey Torah and hate your neighbor. You're a liar. You're a liar, and you're not a firstborn son. I don't care what genealogy you boast in. If you hate your brother, you're not a firstborn son. You're still a Gentile. You're still a Gentile, and you're not going to inherit. You're not going to inherit. And they answered. Let me look at the time. All right, I'm gonna read this, and I'm going to end it up here, and then we're going to start part 4, Barak Yahuwah. And they answered and said unto Asau, because Yaqub supplicated us in this matter, not to slay him, our pity was excited towards him. And we took all belonging to him, and brought it unto you. And Asau took all the silver and gold which YAHUAH'S had taken from Yaqub, and he put them by in his house. And at that time, when Asau saw that Ishkak had Baruch Yaqub, and had commanded him, saying, you shall not take a woman from amongst the daughters of Canaan, and that the daughters of Canaan were bad in the sight of Ishkak and Rebekah, that he went to the house of Ishmael, his uncle, and in addition to his other women, he took Machlaf, the daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Nabaioth, for a woman. So we've read here, and I'm going to end it right here, that Yaqub was taught by Shem and Abba and Abraham and Ishkak. He was taught by men who had the characteristic of Yahuwah, who were firstborn sons of Yahuwah. And he was taught by them because they recognized that he had this very same nature. And they taught him, and he aligned himself with the instructions of Yahuwah, which is his Torah, and which is his Torah is his very nature and character, because Torah is Yahuwah. And whereby when he aligned himself with Torah, he took on the very nature and character of Yahuwah Al-Yum, whereby becoming his firstborn son, whereby becoming privy to the covenant, to the inheritance, to the promise. But is there more to the promise? Again, the promise and the covenant and the inheritance, all of this is synonymous. We're going to get more into this in part 4. But I'm going to stop this right here for now, because I don't want to make these videos too long, because I know some of you have short attention spans. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. So until part 4, please tune in to part 4. Shalom, shalom, mashpaka, shalom.